Our protagonist in this story is an Uber driver named Ashsu. He feels like a loser. No money, no girlfriend, and the car he's driving was bought on credit. Opening a can of drink, he steps outside of his car to get some fresh air. As he laments his miserable life, he wishes the world would be destroyed, something he wouldn't hesitate to support. Suddenly, he sneezes loudly, startling the people around him. Adjusting his glasses, he thinks it must be the pollen season because he's been sneezing a lot. Just then, he notices a cat close to him. As he pets it, he muses about his idea of global destruction and thinks it wouldn't be a bad idea if it happened sooner rather than later. But to our surprise, a giant praying mantis stands behind him, its shadow casting over him. Horrified and pale-faced, beads of sweat form on his face as he wonders if it's truly a mantis. But it's already preparing to strike. While holding the kitty, Ashsu manages to dodge the strike that causes the ground to crack and quickly bolts into his car. Feeling a bit lucky because one strike from the mantis would spell his end, he aggressively steps on the gas and speeds like a crazy guy, realizing what's happening in the city. His previous comment about the world's destruction was just a casual remark and nothing serious. Now, he wonders what to do as he calls for a system or anything that could help because he doesn't want to die. The next moment, a strange message is displayed about his life being threatened. Bewildered, he wonders about the voice in his head regarding a system installation. However, if this was his ability, he wanted something more useful. Soon, he spots a giant housefly in the car's side mirror. The fly injects worms out of its body, creating obstacles for our protagonist. But he easily maneuvers like he's the next Vin Diesel in a Fast and Furious movie. Thinking he was safe, he curses the insects for their failed attempt. Feeling confident and reassured by his driving skills for easily losing them, his confidence is short-lived as another insect is on top of his car. Immediately, an idea on how to handle the situation comes to mind. He turns the steering swiftly, causing the car to drift sideways, making the huge insect fall off. Now, with the threat dealt with, all he has to do is wait for the system to complete its installation. However, he doesn't notice a huge bee behind him preparing to strike. Before he can react, the bee launches its stinger, which injures and penetrates his shoulder. Furious, he realizes it's a bee stinger, but he can't express further annoyance as a giant beetle stands towering over him. Causing his previous annoyance to shift towards fear and disbelief, the beetle positions its antennae like a military blockade. His car crashes and is completely destroyed, leaving him in midair. At this point, he already knows he's finished and will most likely die a virgin. Just in the nick of time, the system informs him that it is fully loaded and the update is beginning. Just like in the Matrix, a vehicle slowly materializes from nowhere, taking the form of a combat vehicle. Our hero is astonished by the process. The system wastes no time congratulating him for unlocking the vehicle. Next, the system artificial intelligence assistant also materializes as a lady introducing herself to our hero as Xiao. Meanwhile, our boy enthusiastically tells her to skip the tutorial and asks about the missions and rewards. Well, it's not surprised. She explains that the system will give missions, and by completing them, he earns reward points to upgrade the vehicle in order to survive the apocalypse. Since there are many mutants, she decides to activate the weapon system function with a click on the panel. The vehicle's weapon upgrades to level 10, materializing a plasma cannon. The unfortunate beetle charging toward our protagonist is instantly destroyed. Next, it turns to a machine gun, firing rapidly and killing all the mutant insect attackers. At this point, it's almost like he's driving a tank. Ashsu is somewhat excited by the outcome, hoping his special ability will make him invincible. But Xiao quickly shuts the idea down, explaining that the weapon system was just a trial, and it was done to protect his life. Also, once he survives, she promises to have a conversation with him. Then, the weapons then disappear. Next, the system displays his level at 1, and the skills to upgrade in the vehicle. With only one upgrade point, suddenly, he feels a sharp pain from his wound. Knowing he needs to treat it, he decides to upgrade the medical care. Just like in the Matrix, medical equipment materializes in the vehicle, and the system announces his healing process, relieving his pain. Realizing that if he needs to survive the apocalypse, he needs to continuously upgrade the vehicle, he asks Xiao about the deal with the monsters. She explains that, based on his current level, she can't disclose all the information, but the insects mutated after inhaling an anomalous substance. To get more information, he needs to complete missions and upgrade the vehicle. While on the subject, His first mission just arrived. The system gives a task to complete a pickup order, and the reward promised to increase the vehicle level and engine level by 1. Stunned by the request, before he can question it, an Uber order arrives, demanding he head to a specific location. Upon arrival, he is deeply flustered. The order comes from a beautiful lady who somehow managed to survive the crisis, and requests he takes her to X city. On their way to X city, the lady can't believe she found a ride during this crisis. Noting the car seems special, she asks if he modified it on purpose. Our protagonist, giving a sheepish answer while averting his gaze, states that customer safety is their utmost importance. However, the lady wants him to get to X city as soon as possible because she is worried about her parents. He tries not to get caught staring at her assets. With that, he hits the gas. Arriving at the girl's parents' house, the system displays that he successfully completed the mission, earning an increase in the vehicle and engine levels along with an upgrade point. However, the girl is horrified by what she sees as announces their arrival. When he curiously asks with concern, she points to the destroyed building, noting this is where all her family members were. It takes no time to realize that they are dead, and she blames the damn insects while trembling. Still trembling, she continuously repeats the same words. Unknown to our protagonist, something is happening. Now, her eyes fully change color. She turns to our protagonist, who is a bit confused but offers his condolences. However, she is no longer herself as she shoots a wicked grin at Ashsu. It doesn't take long for him to realize something is off. Seeing Ashsu as a bug, she launches towards him with killing intent. He manages to grab both her hands and desperately tries to reason with her, but she is fixated on killing him, calling him a damned insect. This is something straight out of an apocalypse web novel, he ponders, feeling the tense situation. He screams for the system to do something. In his view, he only wanted to complete a mission, and this lady wants to kill him. When Xiao appears, she casually tells him to deal with it, noting the problem isn't serious. Meanwhile, he questions the sanity of the system, but Xiao sticks to her statement. Feeling the increasing strength of the lady and his own strength weakening, an idea strikes him as he remembers the upgrade point he got as a reward. Xiao is already on the task as he requests for the vehicle armament to be upgraded. Just as the mutant lady manages to free her hand, and Ashsu is watching his life flash before his eyes, out of nowhere, a pistol prevents the strike. The system announces the weapon is fully loaded. In the next moment, the girl is history as blood splatters. Ashsu watches, traumatized by the scene, with his eyes and mouth wide open. Just then, he feels the pain from his wound, realizing it wasn't fully healed. Xiao wastes no time explaining that the system isn't magic and naturally needs resources to operate. He can upgrade the vehicle with task completion, but he needs to get supplies with his own hands. It doesn't take long for him to realize his next stop will be the hospital. Luckily, he's in X city where the monsters are fewer. But since it's dangerous outside, he asks Xiao for anything that could help, and she offers him the pistol from the vehicle armament. The scene transitions to the central hospital in X city. A bald-headed man with a gold tooth and a bat wonders aloud if the person isn't done. While we see someone packing medical supplies, it turns out to be a stunning doctor. She runs out, announcing she is done. However, the bald guy tries to understand why she took her time and was slow in the process, not realizing a mutant insect is behind him. Before she can warn him, the fool is instantly deleted. Horrified by the sight, she falls to her knees, watching the bald man being devoured. Then, the insect turns to its next prey. Wasting no time, it launches itself towards her as she screams for help. Just in time, a gunshot rings out, hitting the insect squarely and killing it instantly, leaving her puzzled. When the doctor asks for Ashsu's identity, he casually introduces himself as an Uber driver. She thanks him, but he offers to take her anywhere in exchange for information on where the medical supplies are. Their conversation is interrupted as Ashsu notices insects in the dark, seemingly drawn by the sound of the gun. Quickly, he pulls the doctor to hide, instructing her to be quiet as they hide. They both struggle a bit inside, not wanting to attract the creatures, promising to talk later. As they were in somewhat awkward position, she tries to explain something, while looking a bit flustered, so he quickly apologizes as he realized his hand is in a sensitive area. Suddenly, an insect appears in the room. Spotting nothing, it leaves. When he checks and realizes the coast is clear, they come out of their hiding spot. She comments on how close it was, and our boy feels somewhat useless without his car. Just then, he feels the sharp pain, realizing the injury has swollen and is getting worse. The doctor, on the other hand, notices it is infected and asks the cause, to which he replies it was a giant bee. The next moment, Ashsu is shocked while she tries to reassure him not to worry. Noticing her eyes were different, and with a serious expression, she insists on helping him with his injury. Because it needs urgent attention, Ashsu realizes that the doctor is not acting the same as the previous lady. But he doesn't plan on letting his guard down. One wrong move, and he wouldn't hesitate to end her. She proceeds with a surgical blade, noting there is no need for anesthesia. Meanwhile, Ashsu notices it isn't painful, surprised by its mildness. Grabbing a towel, she removes the contaminated blood and applies disinfectant. Looking at her, he thinks she seems like a different person when operating. For the final process, she stitches the wound, noting that our hero was lucky the infection didn't spread. Meanwhile, he is a bit surprised it took less than a minute. Even the vehicle medical care wasn't this fast. Suddenly, she slumps down, falling on our protagonist as he asks if she is okay. She quickly apologizes, noting the surgery wore her out. At the same time, he notices her eyes are back to normal. As she gathers her stuff, he thinks her power is related to medicine. He also wonders if people gain abilities during the apocalypse just as he got the system. However, they are unaware of the insects lurking in the dark as she announces she is done. Ashsu then asks if she can walk, to which she agrees. Just then, he senses danger and prepares to engage, firing squarely at the bug's stomach. After it falls, he notices it is different from the other bugs, maybe an elite bug, but it is still alive. Quickly, they bolt towards the exit. However, the doctor struggles to keep up. While Ashsu tries to reassure her that the exit is right ahead, he is shocked the next moment, seeing her close to being bitten and the creature's next meal. He wastes no time in saving her. A bit embarrassed, she apologizes for slowing him down, but he displays a smug smile, noting it doesn't matter. As the elite bug launches at them, he calls for Shao loudly. His vehicle rams and breaks through the central hospital wall. Meanwhile, Shao informs him he doesn't need to shout. They can communicate telepathically. At the same time, the vehicle hits the elite bug, causing it to crash into a wall. They rush to his car. Suddenly, there is a loud screech from the elite bug. Thinking it is calling for reinforcements, he instructs her to hurry rather than just standing there. After entering his car and making sure the door is closed, he skillfully shifts gears and hitting the gas pedal, leaving the hospital. After losing the insects, Shao appears, causing our boy to be startled as she didn't expect him to survive. Before he can respond, Shao assures him that no one can see her and reminds him they can talk telepathically. Before we proceed, a flashback to 2 hours ago before heading to the hospital reveals Shao telling him that at the car's current level, she can only help with acceleration and braking, which was great. He instructed her to come for him when he needed help. Back to the present, Shao reveals a pressing matter. The car engine is slightly damaged due to the previous crash and needs repair. He asks if the car doesn't have an auto repair function. Shao explains the car does, but it's available at a higher level. Causing him to sigh, he notes he needs to find a mechanic to repair the car. Right on cue, the doctor requests he takes her to H Estate, where injured people need her help, and there is a good mechanic there. At the same time, he gets a mission from the system to escort the doctor, which will increase the car level to 3 and the passenger capacity. This is within his expectations. He will be able to level up and get a free repair at the same time. With that, he heads to their destination. On the way, she finally introduces herself as Lei Qi, a doctor at the central hospital. Time passes, and they finally arrive at H Estate, with people waiting for her and asking about her tasks in gathering medicine. At the same time, he receives his rewards upon completion and wastes no time demanding the car weaponry to be upgraded to level 3. But Shao dismisses the idea, explaining upgrade points increase with each level increase. Understanding, he decides it will be best to upgrade the car weaponry to level 2 and upgrade durability. But how can he explain a weapon appearing out of nowhere? Before he can process this thought, a man is already admiring his vehicle, leaving him stunned. Dr. Lei Qi introduces him as the mechanic she previously mentioned, but he expresses concern if the guy he called a pervert can actually fix his car. The mechanic, collecting himself, notes that he's saved and helped the doctor. Luckily, the damage isn't serious, and he will be done in 30 minutes. With that, Dr. Lei Qi cheerfully reports her departure to see the injured and offering food as a reward to our protagonist. After some time, Ashsu decides to check on his car but is stopped by a group of guys who recognize him, demanding his car key. Without giving him a chance to answer, they reveal the bald guy who died at the hospital was one of them, and they promise to let things slide if he hands over the keys. But our boy replies with a shot to the fool's earlobe. Then he explains how fools die for ranting too much, promising to make sure he reunites with his brother. The fool falls to the ground, screaming from the pain, while he thinks someone trying to steal his car is a typical cliché in an apocalypse web novel. Suddenly, there is an explosion, leaving our boy shocked by this development. During the explosion, the insects invade the place. One of the residents is unfortunate, being devoured. That's when our boy realizes the creatures followed the air duct into the place. Quickly running to his car, he discovers it wasn't fixed and there is no point hiding anymore, just as an insect spots him. As it closes the distance, he screams for Xiao to upgrade the weaponry. The car immediately receives the order, materializing a weapon. He quickly orders it to fire. Instantly, the insect receives rapid fire and is killed. However, the system informs him that the engine wasn't repaired, advising him to avoid collisions. But that seems impossible due to the number of insects. Luckily, when inside the car, Xiao assures him that the upgraded weaponry has an auto-aim system that eliminates any insect in sight. This brings a smile to Ashsu's face. Now confident, he drives at full speed as the weaponry continues doing its magic. Suddenly, he spots the doctor. She, however, is sobbing and blames herself for what is happening, feeling she attracted the insects. Meanwhile, he is puzzled by this woman. If it wasn't for her medical skill, he wouldn't mind abandoning her. With that, he calls for her attention. She is a bit surprised to see him. He tells her to get in, not forgetting to mention that it's the apocalypse, and there is no safe place. As they make their exit, some people plead for them to save them. Unfortunately, nothing could be done. After they escape, Ashsu decides to have a serious talk with her. There was no need to be a saint. Any delay, and they would have been food for the creatures. The reason he saved her was because she was worth more to him than the rest, and she can choose to follow him if she wants. She understands and starts by thanking him. Then, with determination, she agrees to stay, promising to do her part if he will protect her. The moment she agrees, the system chimes in, informing him that the vehicle population has increased to 2 people. The medical care was upgraded to the next level thanks to the new level medical staff added. Also, the weaponry increased to level 3, unlocking an artillery function. He laughs excitedly at this development. He got so many rewards just by adding a member. But he asks about the artillery function. Xiao replies that the weaponry is auto-aim, but the artillery system is more powerful and needs an operator. Also, she is definitely sure that he will need it. Well, Xiao wasn't lying, as it wasn't long before a horde of insects began chasing them. Ashsu pulls Dr. Lei Qi, giving her the wheel, noting there is no time to hesitate. In truth, he wants to manually try the artillery system for himself, and from his expression, he can't wait to blow these insects to oblivion. And like that, the battle begins as the auto-aim system fires. Suddenly, an insect tries to attack Dr. Lei, calling for our boy's help. He easily deals with it. Without looking, he tells her to focus on driving and instructs her to find a way around. She steels herself, knowing she can't let him down since he has saved her many times. Determined to prove herself, she focuses deeply and uses her ability. In her field of vision, everything seems to be slower, which she finds strange. Confident in completing the task, she easily maneuvers around the insects, leaving several afterimages. Next, the weaponry behind rains a barrage of bullets at the insects, sending them to the afterlife. And like that, they are able to escape the horde, or rather annihilate the horde. After some time, our boy notes she was great, and it was the best choice bringing her into his team. But she is concerned about everyone left behind, and he reminds her he couldn't do anything and it wasn't his responsibility to save them. Since the engine needs repairs and now the insects have begun moving in hordes, he laments their problem. They need to find shelter and fix the car. Just in time, a new mission appears. Its title is Save the Officer, with rewards including an increase in vehicle level, an auto repair function, a vehicle deployment function, and a hidden mission unlocked. It feels like the missions are given based on our boy's current situation. Elsewhere, military personnel try to fend off the insects, dealing with miniature insects. The mission target, Officer Ming Qing, a special ability user, grits his teeth as the insects have begun moving in hordes, pondering their next move. However, an insect suddenly appears, interrupting his thoughts. He is momentarily stunned by the size of the elite bug. The insect's attack sends him flying, creating a mountain of dust. Its eyes flash with animal instinct to kill, and with a swift move, it finishes his brother. Battered and bruised, Officer Ming, enraged, loudly exclaims to kill the creature as it launches towards him. Right in time, our boy arrives, easily killing the elite bug before it can harm the officer, smashing it with the car, causing Officer Ming to ask about his identity. Our boy lowers the car window slowly and casually introduces himself as an Uber driver with a smile, while Dr. Lei feels somewhat awkward by his remark. Regardless, the system displays that the mission is completed. In the next chapter, while in a military shelter, as Dr. Lei tends to the officer, Ashsu realizes the car is on the brink of collapse. Luckily, after completing the mission, he is rewarded with an auto repair kit, which he uses immediately to make the car repair itself. Ashsu, looking at the system panel, comments that he has been completing missions, but his level remains low, and he fears what might happen if a horde of insects appears. He also wonders about the deployment function. Before he can proceed with his thoughts, Dr. Lei approaches, and he asks if she is done with Officer Ming's surgery. She affirms, suddenly falling into his arms as he asks if she is okay. She assures him that she is fine, and he advises her to rest in the car. Funny how she always falls on the protagonist after surgery, and not someone else. Next, Officer Ming formally introduces himself to Ashsu, thanking him, but he wants to ask some questions. Officer Ming sees no problem in answering since he actually saved his life. Sitting down with a bar of chocolate in his hand, he straight up asks how he used to slice those insects. Suddenly, the bar is cut before he can ask for details. Officer Ming explains that during the mutation of the insects, a few people gained special abilities, which they call awakened in the military. Also, he thinks Ashsu's vehicle and the doctor are not ordinary, believing they are actually awakened individuals. He sheepishly agrees, noting he would have been food for the insects without being awakened. But in truth, he's just an Uber driver with a modified vehicle and a system totally different from them, and it would be best to hide it. Then, interrupting his thoughts, Officer Ming explains that despite being awakened, it would be difficult to handle a horde of insects. This makes him question his reasoning. So, Officer Ming explains that for some unknown reason, the insects have been moving in large numbers, destroying cities in their path. That's how he and his team ended up in X City. He fears the horde must be on their way. Ashsu understands the best choice would be to continue running, but they stop at X City. Before he can complete his statement, Officer Ming reaches for something in his pocket and tosses it to Ashsu. It's new intel they received a few days ago. Ashsu's eyes widen in shock when he checks. It's a huge insect, or rather a caterpillar, more than the size of an elite bug. From Officer Ming's intel, there is no escape since the route has been cut off. Right on cue, the system triggers an update, adding a special mission on United Resistance. This time, there is a limited time reward, which is a weapon fabrication center and a danger detector. Finally, the main objective is to survive the horde. Noticing the temporary reward, Ashsu is still puzzled about its usefulness, and how they would overcome the incoming horde. Then Xiao appears, reminding him of the deployment function he earned after saving the officer. She explains that with it, he will be able to transform the car into a base with increased durability and firing capacity. And for the weapon fabrication center, it can only be used in deployment mode. As the name suggests, it is used to make or upgrade weapons, and the strength of the weapon is based on the material used. With this in mind, Ashsu understands that to survive the horde, they will need much firepower, and he decides to go all out. After contemplating, he knows the officer understands his car isn't normal, and with the horde coming, there's no way to avoid it. Officer Ming, puzzled, asks for clarity. With confidence, Ashsu requires Officer Ming to join, assuring him they will survive the horde. Moments later, outside the military shelter, watching him stare blankly, Dr. Lei asks about his next move, to which he promises she will see. Next, he activates the vehicle deployment function. The car begins transforming little by little. The doors widen, the weaponry adjusts. Dr. Lei watches in disbelief, wondering aloud if technology has been this advanced. But he doesn't respond. Instead, he asks Xiao to explain in detail about the functions of the danger detector and weapon fabrication. Without wasting time, Xiao starts with the danger detector, explaining it enables detection of enemies and evaluates them based on strength, depending on the vehicle level. Also, the data from the scan is in real time. Basically, it's a monitoring system. Turning to the weapon fabricator, she explains that it needs material to produce newly upgraded or crafted weapons. With this, his eyes sparkles knowing manufacturing powerful weapons will be a piece of cake. So he asks excitedly how long the manufacturing process takes. Before we can find out, the scene changes to our protagonist and Officer Ming, who comments that the car seems like a base. But our boy is fixed on testing the fabricator with the material he requested for. He places the mantis blade in Officer Ming's sword, thinking it's perfect, but the officer is a bit skeptical about the process. But Ashsu tells him to watch as the manufacturing process begins. After some time, the new sword is complete, and thankfully, the process worked as expected. The officer inspects the sword, feeling something different about it, not just the texture. But before he can finish, he is interrupted by Dr. Lei reporting huge movements spotted on the radar by the danger detector. Without wasting time, Ashsu barks orders for everyone to grab a suitable weapon as they prepare to face the massive horde of incoming insects.